What's going on, Buffs fans? This is David here again, talking everything CU Buffs football, Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, and everything in between. Today, I thought I would just have a Sunday coffee and a little conversation with you on my current thoughts from the perspective of being a CU alum, CU Buffs fan, where everything is going within conference realignment, the TV deals, and all that. So, again, before I get started, I'd appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button, hit that like. Let me know in the comments, what are you hoping for as a CU Buffs or Prime fan when it comes to the rest of this conference realignment stuff, the TV deals? I want to hear it. So, I'm a few subscribers away from 500. I'll be dropping a highlight tape that I made, one of my favorite current Buffs, once I hit that 500 mark to celebrate. So, make sure you hit that subscribe. But let's go ahead and get started. This is kind of going to be me just kind of talking ad lib, so we'll see how this goes. But first thing that I did want to cover is, the Pac-12 media deal should be announced here. It seems like with most reporters that I've seen on Twitter, they're expecting it within the next couple weeks. San Diego State and SMU will be added. Exciting. From a fan perspective, I like that we'll be able to play a Texas school. And SMU was very good in the 80s when they were paying their players illegally. So why can't they be on the come up when all that's legal? So I think it's a pretty good ad for the conference. Now, you can criticize them for not trying to grab some of the Big 12 schools last year when all that stuff with Texas and Oklahoma was going on, and I think that's a fair criticism. But I've seen a lot on Twitter, or you'll see it on YouTube, about, this is the next rumor with the Pac falling apart, or, this is the next rumor with, this is where the Four Corner schools are going and all that. And from a fan's perspective, with CU and just as an alum, I don't think you'll see anyone from the Pac-12 or the majority of these schools want to kind of leave this conference prematurely and kind of in a way settle money-wise with the Big 12. And I think a lot of that is because a lot of us feel the same, which is like it's Big 10 or bust. I think if we're just looking realistically at the college football landscape over the next 10 years, I think it's very evident that Washington, Oregon, Cal, Stanford all want to be part of the Big 10. I would love to be part of the Big 10 because, again, it's one of those Power 2 conferences right now. And we would be right back into having a rivalry with Nebraska. I did think with coming over to the Pac, 12, 13 years ago, there was this expectation of, okay, we can create this great mountain rivalry with Utah. The problem is that we've been so bad, there really isn't a rivalry there with Utah or with any of the Pac-12 schools that we currently play against right now. I mean, even with USC, that game's going to mean a lot this fall when they come into town to play us, because it's probably going to be our last shot in quite a while in playing them, and we've never won a game against them in the history of our schools. I think we're like 0-12 or 0-13 against them. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I would rather see the Pac, from my perspective, stick together so that 7 years down the line, does CU and possibly Utah kind of have that ability to pitch, hey, Big Ten, we will connect the rest of the LA schools to the rest of the Big Ten. It makes sense as kind of travel partners, and you also get that mountain time zone. Does it make sense? We're AAU accredited schools. We would fit academically, so it's really just doesn't make sense sports-wise. Now, another point that I did want to talk about with all this conference realignment, the super conference developments, it's really cool. It's really cool for football. However, the amount of travel that the LA schools like UCLA and USC will do with like their men's and women's basketball team or baseball, so some of their other sports into the Eastern time zone, it's just going to be insane. And while you can manage that a few times a year on a football schedule because you're only playing 7-8 road games, something like that at max, I really do feel for some of those college athletes that are going to be traveling so much while they're in college. And I know that, from a football and I guess basketball perspective, in some ways, you could argue that, these athletes are above, just being regular amateur collegiate athletes. They're more like professionals. I mean, they're paid, they can make money and all that, which is true, but these Olympic sports and some of these smaller sports, it's not exactly the case all the time. And it's like I would almost like to see football kind of operate within their own conferences. Like, it just would have been great if USC and UCLA, okay, if you got to move to the Big Ten for football, that's fine. But I think it would have made sense for a lot of their other sports to still stay within the Pac-12 conference. I think a lot of those sports are better off when the travel is regionalized. But again, that's me just, I guess, fantasizing about how I think things ideally should be. And I know it's not the current reality of the college sports landscape. Another point that I didn't want to talk about today was the rumors, I guess. There's rumors every day about what's going on with conference realignment expansion, but this new one with the alliance with the Pac-12 and the ACC, and having this alliance that would lead to a merger here in 4 years, and then they would develop a coast-to-coast super conference. I think, again, being one of the bottom 3 conferences right now, being in them, you either hope to pray you get an invite from the SEC or Big Ten, or a big move's got to be made with some of these conferences. Now, I'm not sure how that works because, again, you got a lot of powers to kind of dissect, because it's like, okay, you have, Washington, leading the board here in the Pac. It's like, okay, are they going to be okay if they're not retaining that sort of power within a conference merger? There's a lot of politics with these school presidents that I know exist, but I can't really speak in depth about, obviously. But I know that it's more than just, hey, this makes sense sports-wise and TV money-wise, let's just do it. Otherwise, maybe you might have already seen this happen. But I think from a fan's perspective, I would love to see CU play some of these ACC schools, see where we stack up. I mean, it would be great to play Florida State and Miami, like we have in the past. I've missed having those sorts of rivalries, or those, I guess they would be conference rivals now, but it also would make sense from what I talked about earlier in terms of travel. You could have your Pac division, you could have your ACC division, where you're not really traveling coast to coast more than maybe a couple times a season. You stay within your regions, and then the winners play each other in the conference title. That could be a way to really mitigate a lot of the travel issues within the conference, not only for football, but for other sports. But overall, I think the super conference stuff is very exciting. However, I think it does rob us of some rivalries, some traditional college football rivalries, because everything's just about the TV deals and the conferences now. I mean, it sucks not being able to play Nebraska every year. And I'm not sure how Cornhuskers fans feel about that, but because, I mean, I know y'all have won more games against us than we have against y'all, but, we haven't had a rivalry like that in the Pac-12, nothing nearly that special. And, you see it with Texas and Texas A&M, with A&M leaving for the SEC years and years ago. That really robbed college football fans overall of a great rivalry every year. And so it'll be great to see Texas going to the SEC to see that happen. But again, then you lose with Texas, you lose them playing Texas Tech, At least they'll still play Oklahoma, which is great. But that's one of the things that I'm not super psyched about when it comes to all this conference realignment stuff, is really the robbing of certain rivalries, traditional rivalries that have been around for decades. I don't think the ACC makes any move in terms of expansion right now unless Notre Dame is involved. So I think they're kind of the big domino to fall within the college football landscape next, and I don't think you'll see really any big moves done on the eastern side of things with college football until that's decided. Thanks for listening to my rambling a little bit. Again, I think overall as a CU Buffs fan, I'm happy that we have Coach Prime right now when we do, that he's here. I hope that he can be our coach for life. I'm going to continue to hope that. I don't know if that's realistic, but I think it's very important that we have him right now with this changing landscape, because 6 months ago, I didn't think Colorado had a place at all within the new college football. So we'll kind of see where we go. Again, I think college football's the strongest when there is parity from top to bottom, and when all of these Power 5 or they develop into a Power 4 at any point, conferences are on a more even playing field when it comes to resources and money. But I know that's not exactly, the reality of things right now. So thanks for listening to my Sunday coffee conversation. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this. What would you like to see Colorado do? Again, for me, I think right now it's like, man, would love a Big Ten invite, in 7 years from now. But, until then, let's just see how this stuff with the Pac works out. So again, thanks for tuning in. Sco Buffs. I'll be dropping that highlight video soon, I'm sure.